to go through this process. We thank you all for taking out of your time and schedule to go through the interview process. And we do have our May election in 2024. Please get involved with what's going on in the city of Killeen and join one of our committees or one of our boards. We're truly appreciative of you. Will we please turn off all phones, electronic devices, so we can start the meeting? Thank you. We will now start with citizen comments. You have 4 minutes. Council, if you would like to say anything, you have 1 minute. Melissa Brown.
Good evening again. I just want to speak not only in favor of the several expenditures for the airport and for aviation, but also express my gratitude to Mr. Wilson, who took the time to explain it to not only me, but another citizen who had questions about it prior to the beginning of the meeting, in which it was explained that all of this expenses, all of these improvements, none of it comes out of our general fund or any of our citizen tax dollars. Mr. Wilson has done a great job taking this airport from being in the red to being self-sustaining even through COVID-19. And we're well on a trajectory towards being profitable at our regional airport again. So I'd really like to support these programs. If we don't get these projects underway and get them completed as soon as possible, we won't continue to see that forward momentum. So I have full faith that the council will support those. And also, happy birthday, Mr. Wilson.
Michael Fornino.
Good evening. Just a couple of things on the budget, just in general terms when it comes to the health program and operating budget going forward. I stand here tonight to advocate on behalf of police, firefighters, code enforcement, and our solid waste department. There's things that they are not provided that I believe would be a very good thing to provide for them. That would be prophylaxis, as to say, a preventive measure for their health and safety. As I've advocated up here for years, that we do not have enough of all those departments mentioned. So I think it is in our best interest as a city, as a community, and as a government body to take care of that which we do have. I would propose that we get them on a health care plan that includes, complementary to, if they so choose to take it, preventives against hepatitis A, B, and all the other varieties, and also PrEP. Now, most people would think is that as a pill that you can take or an injection that you can take that can make you very sexually promiscuous, but in its offset, it's really just to prevent the body from contracting HIV or minimizing it to that. I mean, when you consider all those departments, all the environments that they operate in, a trash collector could get accidentally jabbed by a needle or rusty piece of metal. Police, when they're patting down a suspect and they hit a needle or something like that, a little latex glove is not going to stop that. And a few of you on the council who actually do have medical experience can speak to that and say that simple latex glove is not very much protection between yourself and a sharp object that could endanger your health and your life, and by say your life, cut your life short. So I mean, these are basic things. I mean, it would be very easy to get a health care plan that would offer that. As I've said, we've for years lacked in personnel across the board. Like now we don't have the luxury of the surplus of personnel. The least we could do, and the very least that we owe these men and women in those departments, is the right to go to work and come home with one less thing to worry about every night. I mean, that's just, it's a simple thing. It's a medication that can be easily prescribed, easily tracked, easily monitored, and it would pay dividends as far as making those departments more attractive for people to want to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and looking out for our first responders and waste management. That's very kind of you. We will now have Ronnie Russell.
Madam Mayor, I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir, it didn't pop up. I apologize. Will you push to see if it works?
Yes, ma'am, it did.
It's not on.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Councilmember Boyd.
I'm just curious for my own edification, I guess for everyone else, I'd like to ask the city manager, what measures might we already have in place to address the concern that was brought up?
Well, that covered a lot of ground, and we do a lot. So let me get back to you so I can give you a complete answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyd. Chief Kabinski, did you have anything you want to say? Please come to the podium. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I can't speak for PD or Waste Management. I do know the Fire Department Infection Control Program requires our firefighters and paramedics to, if they are subject to a stick or a exposure of a biohazardous material, they are immediately evaluated, and if prophylactics are required, they do have access to that immediately, and that is at no cost to the employees. So I do know that that happens for the fire department, and that's considered a workers' comp type situation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Councilmember Boyd. We will now have Ronnie Russell.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Manager, City Attorney, Council members, Mayor Pro Tem, sorry. Looking at I was looking at the slides for the ARPA funds for the grocery store initiative. Of course, the total amount was the $2,328, and the PFC funds of the $70,000, which totaled out to $9,329. The initial allocations for the Oasis Fresh Market was $42,000. We did complete the actual grocery store study. I did just receive that, so I will forward that to you, Mr. Cagle, because the invoice was sent out and invoice was received, and Oasis Fresh Market is now a vendor of the city of Killeen, and that invoice was paid out. So thank you for that. And with the remaining of that, actually creating the construction feasibility study. We did have our first meeting with that, and looking at what's there, the remaining balance, when it says remaining balance available for allocation, which is the $48,328, I think that to reallocate that leaves no room for adjustment, because we all know what was built in 2010, the price of whatever is different now. Speaking with Mr. A.J. Johnson, I think that what we can do with that remaining balance would definitely help for the Oasis Phase 1 implementation of systems and sustainability. So what does that actually mean? Reallocating that 48 and putting it back into the pot. So that will go towards all Oasis pre-development systems and processes, meaning whatever was used to build that out, just carrying that and redeveloping that here locally in this area. Site visits, Mr. Johnson has yet to be here in this city. AWG was the firm that was used to actually do the grocery store market study. But having those site visits, I'm sure it'll take more than one time for him to be here in this area, which is also with the site analyst and the implementation and execution. Also looking at the community needs through assessment. Of course, that will probably be creating surveys and pushing those surveys out just to get more information and learning and knowing the community from the Oasis perspective with bringing him and his team over here in this area. Also doing community town halls and partnership agreements. Of course, as far as with the community town halls, we would definitely assist in that, being that, you know, the chamber itself hosts several events and town halls, so we can definitely help and assist with expanding the brand, because when you're operating and using an organization that already has pre-existing relationships, it would definitely help with a new organization coming into the city. And each process definitely has multiple layers. So for me, with this 48,000 that is looking to be reallocated, just request that to take that 48 and keep it inside the grocery store initiative. So that was my request.
Thank you. Mr. Russ, I have several questions for you.
Yes.
Do any council members have questions before I ask Mr. Russell? Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem.
Sir, it's always exciting when we see that we're going in a good direction to help people.
Yes.
But listening to some of the things that you've said, what is the time limitation for that? I'm just curious. Site visits and all this good stuff, could we do it in a month?
I would say it could
we're
be-
ready to get something going over there. That's the
would
reason why I'm
say
asking.
It could be done in a month, because when you look at developing an LOI, it really kind of says that the city is ready to be in agreement with Oasis Fresh Market, you know, because it's a letter of interest. Like, we're ready and willing to do it. But of course, there'll probably be a meeting as well with the city manager as well as the city attorney to talk about what the LOI will look like for that. And I think that, because when I had a meeting with him, so from groundbreaking to grand opening, once everything was complete in the city of Tulsa, it took about 9 months to build the infrastructure. Grand opening, that wasn't complete until month 15. Because that's when you go into the filling the grocery store itself. So one thing that I did actually do was, we already have a case manager who is actually going to fill the shelves inside the grocery store. Had the first meeting with McLean. So keeping the money here in the Central Texas area. So McLean is looking to be the distribution hub, being that they already fill the shelves with Walmart and Sam's Club and stuff like that. So it can be done. It's really how fast would the LOI would be like drafted up, like what is the agreement between the organization and the city.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Russell, Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Russell. I apologize, I missed when you were here to present to us the first time. So I'm kind of getting up to speed on this project. I'm absolutely for anything happening in North Killeen, especially a grocery store. The only thing that I don't see on here, and you guys have probably discussed this amongst yourselves at least, is what does the investment on the part of Oasis look like?
The investment on the part of Oasis is, we had a meeting with the financial institution, and it's looking very well. I don't know, do you know what a MNTC is, the New Market Tax Credit?
Yes, sir.
So we're gonna take care of that side, getting that done. But then from there, you know, that's when we sit down, like, what's next? Like, what are the incentives? Like, are we going into the TERS and things like that? So there's, again, you know, there are more layers, but that is having skin in the game, you know, is what everybody is going to look for in the end. Like, if I'm bringing this, like, what is being brought to the table from you?
Sure, no, absolutely. And what I didn't want to do is tie up all these funds without Oasis having some skin in the game. And what I don't want is to paint a false picture for anyone You know, typically the way that these deals happen, 380 agreements or however they do, this agreement is typically done in reimbursement fashion, where they make the initial investment and then they're reimbursed back over time through tax dollars. So I just want to make sure that hasn't been painted, you know, a false picture for Oasis to where they think that the city's going to, you know, pay for everything, give them some land, build the store for you, and you just come in and occupy it. And so I want to make sure that everything is clear and transparent, and the expectations are good on both sides. So hopefully this moves forward and everybody's tracking on the same page.
Correct. I mean, definitely thank and appreciate you for bringing that up. We definitely have been burning the candle from both ends, looking at what is a private-public partnership looks like, where and how are the funds going to be, like what's being brought in. So we have looked at that from that perspective. So thank you.
Anybody else would like to ask Mr. Russell a question? Mr. Russell, thank you and your Innovation Black Chamber for moving forward with this project. The feasibility study, is that completed?
The grocery store feasibility is complete. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm sorry, Councilwoman Gonzalez. You can go ahead. No,
You
can-
actually just prompted the question I was going to ask after to see where you were going with that, madam, regarding, do we need to put that on the?
Oh, I didn't want to cut you off.
You're fine.
But if you, oh, yes, ma'am. With the feasibility study, so when you finish with the feasibility, well, you completed it, and the marketing study, what will happen after that?
After the now that the grocery store feasibility study is complete, that really says that the area that the grocery store is going to be in is feasible and it makes sense. So now from the construction side, now how much is it going to cost to build this there? Everything from the traffic analysis and stuff like that. So that's the other side that's the phase 2 on those 2 markets, because that was one of the things that we had talked about. What does part 1, what does part 2 look like? Part 1 was getting them to make it make sense that the grocery store is great in this area. So now what does it look like to build the grocery store in this area? And I've been working with Mr. Patrick Purifoy at Blessed Properties on that, and using his skill and expertise. It's not me, I'm the gatherer, and using those as in that area of expertise. I'm just allowing them to do the work.
Yes, sir. And with the 48,000 that you're requesting for your phase 1, how much, I understand what you said it's going to be used for, but Oasis, are they gonna, they gonna put in some toward your phase 1? So the 48,000, that's it, but I guess to me, to go in more details about the 48,000, I think it will give peace of mind to the council, going back to Councilmember Alvarez. Why is that 48,000 significant to move forward with the grocery store?
Well, the 48,000 is not significant to move forward. I mean, we're gonna move forward regardless. It's more of a helpmate. You know, there are things that's going to come about. Again, this is not IBCC.
All right.
We're just facilitating and communicating between Oasis and the city of Killeen. So it's not Ronnie Russell. It's not the Innovation Black Chamber of Commerce. I'm the conduit, the vessel. So that's where it is on that. So the 48 will cover site visits and stuff like that for them, and actually being in this space. If they hire someone locally to do the groundwork, because it's not me, trust me. I wish it was, but it's not me.
Yes, sir. But without you, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Oh, 100%.
You took that initiative to make this happen. And thank you for that. Have you been working with KDC?
That's how we got here.
Okay, that's good to
Sitting
know.
down, communicating with KDC. We just had surface conversations because I don't think we're ready to sit down and have those set-asides, conversations, and stuff like that. I just want to make sure from the land acquisition standpoint, the construction feasibility is done. Now, this is how much it's going to cost. Then you take that information. Again, these are just my thoughts. Then you take that information and say, it's going to cost this much. Like, now what can the EDC do to make this happen? Whether it's TERS or whether it's going through some other things that can be used.
Okay, and I guess the million-dollar question is, since everything is moving forward, what is the feasibility? I know you did the study, that this company has decided this is the place, we're going to do a grocery store, and this is how we're going to move forward. We have a deadline. We're moving forward. But what is the deadline for everything to come together and for constructions to start in the area that you have selected?
I don't think that would be known until after the construction side
Okay.
is done, because the market study is just to say that this is a great market for it. Because of course it's already a food desert. It's a great market. It's really documentation to say, like, these are the numbers.
Yes, sir.
You know, looking at the zip codes, there's 86,000 citizens over here in this area.
Yes, sir. Well, I just think, in just my opinion as mayor, anything we can do to assist to move forward, and you stated whether we do it or not, you're going to move forward, but what better way to invest $48,000 in bringing a grocery store to the north side?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do I have any more citizen comments?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Now we will move to discussion items for regular city council meeting on July 25th, 2023. Madam Secretary?
LMN 23016, consider minutes of regular city council meeting of June 27th, 2023.
Thank you. Resolutions. Council, you have 5 times to speak twice. Madam Secretary.
RS 23111, consider a memorandum resolution to appoint Patillo, Brown and Hill LLP to provide independent auditing services to the city of Killeen for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good evening, Mrs. Tingerland.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, council. This item is for the independent auditing services for fiscal year 2023. Just gonna go through the background really quick. City charter and the financial governance policy require city council to designate a certified public accountant to perform the city's annual audit. The city's financial governance policy requires the city to request proposals every 5 years from qualified firms. Last year, we awarded the audited services to Patillo, Brown and Hill, and then this will be their second year that we are recommending for them to come and do the fiscal year 2023 audit. The estimated audit cost for fiscal year 2023 is $171,000. That includes auditing of 4 major programs for the single audit. Sometimes they audit only 2, so it can be lower, but not more. In the audit committee met on July 18, that was today, and voted to recommend the appointment of Patillo, Brown and Hill LLP for the fiscal year 2023 audit. So those are the alternatives we have. And the recommendation is that the audit committee and staff recommend that the city council renew the agreement with Patillo, Brown and Hill LLP to provide auditing services for the fiscal year ending September 2023. Do you have any questions? I will be more than happy to answer.
No, ma'am, there's no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
RS 23112, consider a memorandum resolution appointing citizens to the board of the Arbor of Hope nonprofit to lead the countywide coordination and management of homeless services.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, Ms. Smith.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City Manager. A little background information. In February, the council adopted the Homeless and Mental Health Strategic Plan. One of the major plan recommendations and emphasis was to establish a nonprofit organization to coordinate, manage, and oversee county-wide strategic action steps to reduce homelessness within Bell County. This governing board of the nonprofit to be established will be composed of 4 members appointed by the Bell County Commissioners Court, 3 appointed by the City of Killeen Council, 3 appointed by the City of Temple, 1 chairperson of the County Homeless Service Providers Advisory Council, 1 ex officio representative of SITCOG, and 1 president, CEO, Arbor of Hope, serving as an ex officio member, which totals a board of 13 members. Staff coordinated with the Communications Department for advertisement. The application was released and posted to the city's social media sites and the city's website page, with an open session from June 2nd through June 18th. A total of 12 applications were received within that period. Staff has provided a copy of the applications submitted for council's considerations for appointment of 3 representatives that will be part of the Arbor of Hope's governing board. Council may choose not to appoint any members. Council may select 3 individuals for representation of the Arbor of Hope Board. Staff recommends alternative number 2 with appointment of 3 individuals to represent Killeen to serve as a portion of the governing board leading the countywide nonprofit coordination and management of homelessness services. If council has any questions, I will address those at this time.
Yes, ma'am. Have you selected any of the 3 individuals?
If council so chooses, I can indicate the recommendations for you.
And the reason I asked that question, this is your field of expertise, and you have the applications, have taken the time to go through all the applications, and your recommendation would be very important to the council.
Yes, ma'am. Upon community staff review, the top selections based on skills and experience, your tab number 1, Ms. Rachel Hanover was a recommendation. She has over 15 years of experience in the homeless sector. She has in-depth knowledge of involvement of the continuum of care, and also HUD regulations and guidelines. She's done nonprofit consultations and consulted with the Texas Homeless Network. Additionally, on your tab number 5, Heidi Kwashi McKee. Ms. McKee is the program coordinator for healthcare for homeless veterans with the VA. She does contract work with local shelters, and she also is a licensed clinical social worker. And she has been a part of the Killeen community and was a previous soldier here within town. Your tab number 7, Ms. Alberta Barrett. Ms. Barrett brings experience as a nonprofit director. She has the experience and understand the financial overview of running a nonprofit and budgeting and fundraising goals, which will be instrumental in this new to be established nonprofit. Additionally, she currently assists with helping the large organization over in Temple Feed My Sheep.
Yes, ma'am. Do the council have any questions? I appreciate you taking the time to recommend those three applicants to fulfill those positions. Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Thank you. And so it seems like we're kind of tracking some of those folks. I just had one question, though. There was an MD of psychiatry that also caught my attention. So when I was looking at the balance of the folks that were, had experience with nonprofit versus had experience with fundraising, which had experience with VA, I thought was all important. The MD of psychiatry stuck out to me tremendously. Can you tell me if he was in your top picks? I know you said three, but
He was, though. We did tap 2 additional supplemental, and that doctor was a recommendation as well. Dr. M, I'm sorry, can't pronunciate his last name, but he was a recommendation as well on that list. And I will provide one more, that 5th one, Mr. Raymond Cockrell.
That was the one.
He runs our current food care center here in the city of Killeen, and he also served as operations director for a mission shelter previously. So
Great
those,
selection of candidates.
Yes,
This is
it
really
was.
awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Raymond was one of my top ones because he has done an excellent, I should say superb job within the community and working with the homeless population. Councilmember Sagara.
Mayor, I just wanted to ask a question. Do we need a motion? Because I know that next week, this is a workshop, so next week we have to vote. So I think we got to provide you with guidance as our 3 selections. Is that correct?
That will be correct, yes, sir.
Yeah, so if everybody's okay, you know, the recommendations that you made, you know, that's my motion and direction. Unless somebody's got to change. If you got to change, then I'm okay with that too. And I think Mrs. Gonzalez does there.
So you made a motion of direction. Is that a yes or no?
No, I withdraw that.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Wonderful selections, but I have a question. I noticed that there's going to be 13 people on that team. We're only responsible for 3. The names that are within this book, will they go on to the other teams? And will they be choosing person from this book? Or do they have some other names that they will be choosing from?
They will not be choosing from our selection of candidates. The City of Temple and Killeen are coordinating to try to balance our timeframes for appointments. The commissioners have opted to select their appointments after the cities have done that. And what I've done, because this is, as you stated, such a good pool of candidates, I have indicated to individuals that I would forward these over to the commissioners.
Thank you. That sounds good. Thank you.
Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for these great recommendations. I did just want to mention and say thank you for the work you and your team are doing towards this. I know it got started some time back, and as council, we're seeing it progress into reality. So thank you for what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Gonzalez.
So quick question with regards to that motion as far as the recommendation. Obviously, they're all great, right? They've done a phenomenal job.
You didn't do a motion of
No,
direction.
I'm regarding making a motion, madam. I have a question. So, and then to say what Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, that these people will also be turned over for additional, hopefully, consideration, possibly, is that what we're saying?
I'm not, I can't say what the commissioner's
Sure.
process will be for
Sure.
selection, but again, because they were such a great pool, I only felt it positive to turn these over to the commissioners.
So I completely support your decision, and I know that you guys have done the research and you know who you all want. Personally, I would just make a motion for the balance of things, I would make a motion for your Barrett, McKee, and Cockrell would be my preference, of course, whatever the body wills. Thank you.
Is that a motion, direction?
Yes, ma'am, I make a motion of
So-
direction for Cockrell,
so-
Barrett, and McKee.
Okay, so is there a council member board?
I'll pass.
Councilmember Boyd, you gonna, for the motion or direction, are you gonna second that?
Well, just for clarification, are these the same names that were just recommended by Ms. Smith? Is that correct, Ms. Smith?
You indicated Barrett, McKee, and Cockrell.
Cockrell was the fifth one, I believe you gave, but yes,
Yeah,
ma'am, Barrett,
and
McKee,
so
and
Ms.
Cockrell.
Hanover, and correct me, I'm sorry, Ms. Gonzalez, Councilwoman Gonzalez, you indicated three that was your motion of direction for Barrett, Cockrell,
And McKee.
and McKee. So my original three with adding those two was Hanover, McKee, and Barrett.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gates. So we need, before we can go into discussion, we need a second on that motion of direction that's on the floor.
I'll second it.
All right. So I'm sorry, ma'am. So the motion of direction was, would you say the names again, please?
Ms. Gonzalez's motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Barrett, McKee, and Cockrell.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cagle?
Mayor, I just wanted to emphasize, while we had 3 recommendations, there was 5 that were very close. So, I mean, the whole group was good, but there were 5 that really rose to the top. So, you can't go wrong, whatever 3 you choose of those 5, we think, and the rest of the pool was good as well.
Okay, with the motion of, thank you for that clarification. For the motion of direction, you can just raise your hand. All in favor? Just raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 7-0 to take the recommendation of Councilwoman Gonzalez. Ms. Smith, once again, I want to say I truly appreciate you taking your time out, you and your staff, to go through the applications, and we will move forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. Madam Secretary.
RS 23-113, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the purchase of Cisco's Unified Computing System in an amount not to exceed $240,386.79.
Thank you. Mr. Resta. Good evening, sir.
Mayor and council. The item before you is our Cisco Unified Computing System renewal. The unified system hardware will reach into life or into support in February 29 of '24. The current maintenance agreement will expire in July 22 of this year. The system upgrade provides upgrade for our VMware, our vCenter, software security patches, upgrades, and hardware replacement. 3 years of hardware and software support for the unified computing system. Insight is a certified Cisco partner, and the pricing is through the Texas Department of Information Resources. The cost of the project over the time of the contract, or one time, it is also budgeted. It's $240,386.79. It includes the hardware equipment, Cisco support on hardware and software, and professional services. And our alternative is to authorize the purchase of the Cisco Unified Computing System. or authorize or do not authorize or authorize the purchase of the Cisco Unified System hardware. And our staff recommends that the city manager as a designee be authorized to execute the purchase of the Cisco Unified Computing System hardware and support with Insight, a Cisco certified vendor, utilizing the DIR contract in the amount not to exceed of $240,386.79. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir. There are no questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
RS 23-114, consider a memorandum resolution accepting a Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program grant for runway and taxiway pavement preservation at Killeen Fort Hood Regional Airport in the amount of $90,000.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Wilson, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight is the acceptance of a grant for the taxiway pavement preservation project at Killeen Fort Hood Regional Airport. Staff submitted an application to the FAA for an airport improvement program grant. This grant's for the runway and taxiway preservation project to include rubber removal, crack sealing, marking, and minor repairs. And it's on our previously approved FAA capital improvement plan for FY23. City's been offered AIP grant in the amount of $90,000 to fund 90% of the runway and taxiway project. Matching funds in the amount of $10,000 will come from the PFC application that was approved by the FAA back in February of 2023. There's absolutely no impact to the operational fund or the fund balance. These are your alternatives. The recommendation is the council accept the FAA AIP grant in the amount of $90,000 and authorize the city manager as designee to execute all grant documents and amendments within the allowable actions of state and local law.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. There are no questions. Madam Secretary.
RS 23-115, consider a memorandum resolution accepting a Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program grant for the pavement management program at Killeen Fort Hood Regional Airport in the amount of $89,190.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, ma'am. This item is acceptance of a pavement management program grant. It's basically a planning study that the FAA requires for us to be able to apply for grants to improve and maintain our pavements. Staff submitted an application to the FAA for an improvement grant. This grant includes a new pavement management study that will result in a new pavement management program that is required to meet FAA grant assurances and standards. The key element of the PMP will be an inventory of existing airfield pavements, a history of all the rehabilitation and maintenance efforts, mapping of said pavements, condition inspections and testing to include geotech testing to determine the condition and strength of each pavement section. The end product will provide the conditioning of the existing pavements and a recommended maintenance program to extend the pavement life cycle of the pavements. This type of plan is a key element in developing our FAA capital improvement plan related to planning and justifying grant funding for pavement rehabilitation projects. The city's been offered an FAA AIP grant in the amount of $89,190 to fund 90% of the cost of the program. Matching funds in the amount of $99,910 will come from the airport's CIP fund. These are your alternatives. And our recommendation is the council accept the FAA grant in the amount of $89,190 and authorize the city manager or his designee to execute all grant documents and amendments or actions within the amounts set by state or local law. Be willing to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. There is no questions. Madam Secretary.
RS 23-116, consider a memorandum resolution approving a professional services agreement with Garver LLC for the pavement management program at Killeen Fort Hood Regional Airport in the amount of $99,100.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, ma'am. This is a companion item to the one I just briefed. This slide's going to be the same. Basically, the FAA has offered the city a grant of $89,190 for 90% of this management program at the Clean Fort Hood Regional Airport. The other $99,10 will come from the CIP fund. The grant will include the new pavement management study that we discussed earlier. The key elements of the PMP, again, will be the inventory of existing payments, history of the maintenance efforts, mapping of said payments, condition inspections and testings, including geotech, to determine the condition and strength of each payment section. Again, the end product will allow us to be able to justify to the FAA grant request for future paving projects. Staff has negotiated a professional services agreement with Garver LLC in the amount of $99,100. $89,190 will be 90% federally funded, and the 10% match will come from the airport improvement fund. Garver is the airport's engineer of record and was selected via competitive process. Your alternatives these are your alternatives. Recommendation is to approve the professional services agreement with Garver LLC in the amount of $99,100 and authorize the city manager or his designee to execute all agreements and any and all amendments and actions within the amount set for state and local law. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. There are no questions for you. Madam Secretary.
RS 23-117, consider a memorandum resolution accepting a Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program grant for the professional services for Taxiway East relocation at Clean Fort Hood Regional Airport in the amount of $407,903. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, ma'am. And again, this is the acceptance of an FAA grant for the relocation of Taxiway Echo. A portion of Taxiway Echo at the Clean Fort Hood Regional Airport needs to be rehabilitated. However, due to changes in the FAA taxiway design standards, any rehab to this taxiway requires a relocation. Staff submitted an application to the FAA for an AIP grant, and the grant was for the project administration, surveying services, geotechnical services, design services, bidding service, and other engineering fees for the Taxiway E relocation project, and it's in our previously approved FAA capital improvement plan for FY23. The city's been offered an AIP grant from the FAA in the amount of $407,903 to fund 90% of the design of the Taxiway E relocation project. Matching funds in the amount of $45,322 will come from the FAA Passenger Facility Charge, or PFC, application that was approved in February 16 of 2023. Again, there's no impact to the operational fund or the fund balance. These are your alternatives. And our recommendation is the City Council accept the FAA AIP grant in the amount of $407,903 and authorize the city manager or his designee to execute all grant documents and any and all amendments or actions within the amount set by state or local law. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. There are no questions. Madam Secretary.
RS 23-118, consider a memorandum resolution approving a professional services agreement with Garver LLC for the redesign of Taxiway E relocation project at Clean Fort Hood Regional Airport in the amount of $449,900.
Thank
Again,
you.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Wilson.
Again, this is the professional service agreement for the project we just briefed. These slides are going to be the same. A portion of Taxiway E at the airport needs rehabilitation. However, due to new changes in FAA standards, it has to be relocated, can't be rebuilt in the same place. The city's been offered an FAA grant in the amount of $407,903 to fund 90% of the program, the project, and the other $45,322 will come from the FAA's PFC application that was approved back in 2023. Again, no impact to the operational fund or fund balance. Staff has negotiated a professional service agreement with Garver LLC for project administration, surveying services, geotechnical services, design services, bidding services and other engineering fees in an amount of $449,900. This is the breakout. 404,910 is funded by the grant. 44,990 is funded by the PFC funds. Again, Garver is airport's engineer of record and was selected via competitive process. These are your alternatives. And staff's recommendation is the council approve the professional service agreement with Garver LLC in the amount of $449,900 and authorize the city manager or his designee to execute all agreements and documents and any amendments or actions within the amount set by state or local law, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Wilson, kudos to you and your staff. That's just excellent to hear those grants and to know that we're improving our airport. But most importantly, happy birthday.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilmember Adams.
So I'm clear, we can't put it in the, this requires us to do a new taxiway, so.
Yes, sir. I should have put a map in, but there's a new, well, it's not new, it's been out for several years. The taxiway configuration that we have at Clean Fort Hood Regional on this particular small piece of the taxiway, it's the small stub that goes from the ramp to the parallel. It also, it provides direct access from the ramp all the way out to the runway. Well, the FAA has decided several years ago that that is a safety hazard because there's been aircraft that have gone straight out and just went right out in the middle of the runway, and there's been runway incursions. So several years ago, they changed the design standards. Now, this piece of the taxiway has been grandfathered, but the first time we had to do any work on it, we have to relocate it. So now that piece of pavement is now needing to be rehabbed, and so the FAA has given us a grant to relocate it. It's going to be an expensive process, but they're paying for it, so.
I guess the other part of my question, does this present to airlines an expansion of our, like enticing, something enticing to come?
Other than the fact that it's bringing our airport up to the current safety standards.
Okay,
That would
that's
be
good
the
too.
only thing I can think of. Because currently, even though we're grandfathered, we don't meet the current design standards for safety.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Wilson, you are a grant getter. And we truly appreciate you and your staff for your initiative to go out there, working extremely well with Fort Cavazos and just bringing our airport to the next level. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your support as well.
Public hearing will be held on July the 25th.
Mayor,
I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor,
Madam
apologies.
Secretary, we have item number 10.
Yes, ma'am. RS 23-119, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the expenditure of federal forfeiture funds and award bid 23-33 3D crime scene scanner to Collision Forensic Solutions LLC in the amount of $138,148.44.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and thank you for always keeping me on track. Chief Lopez, good evening, sir.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Congratulations, new Councilmember Adams and City Manager. This afternoon, I'm presenting you with a request to purchase technology for KPD to enhance our crime scene investigation, evidence collection procedures. In the early hours of any investigation, police officers at the crime scene don't know exactly which evidence to gather, which might be important to the case. Investigators must deliver clear, concise, and well-documented information, even including the most delicate evidence, and we only have one chance to get it right. This technology will allow the detectives to document a crime scene by the use of 3D scanner. This technology allows the detectives to spend more time interviewing victims, witnesses, or suspects rather than spending time on collecting the evidence manually like we're currently doing. In every case, evidence collection is the #1 priority, and this technology will allow the department to fill that priority. Now, 3D laser scanner produces an initial detailed 3D digital representation for documentation of the crime scene with minimal intrusion and disturbance prior to the physical processing of the scene by the detectives. A 3D representation provides improved analysis and visibility of the scenes for detectives, prosecutors, and juries, while augmentation of photos, video, and data to the 3D representation. A 3D laser scanner can measure details and trajectories accurately and more efficiently, resulting in more accurate and timely processing of the crime scene to allow detectives to conduct follow-up investigative action. Now, in addition to the handling the scenes for the police department, we can also have additional applications in crime scene processing, like we discussed, accident reconstruction, fire scenes. Yes, we're going to let the fire department use our technology, and security and major incident management. A competitive bid was processed and completed, and only one bid was received, and that was through Collision Forensic Solution. The submitted bid was $138,148.44 for the Lesia RTC 360 3D laser scanner, and that's the initial cost of the scanner, includes 3 years of maintenance, support, and warranty. And we have identified federal forfeiture funds to be used for this expense. And the alternative is to decline the use of federal funds or approve the use of federal funds to purchase the 3D scanner. And the staff recommends that the City Council authorize the use of federal forfeiture funds for the procurement of the 3D scanner in the amount of $138,148.44.
Thank you, Chief Lopez.
Thank you.
Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Chief.
How you doing, sir?
Very good. This is a great piece of technology. I'm familiar with the benefits this will have just across the board. I did just have a few questions about the training for it. Are there any costs for training officers to use this piece of equipment?
Correct. The vendors can provide the training to detectives and CID, detective and the sergeant and the lieutenant. So we're going to have several people that's going to be capable of utilizing the equipment.
Sure. And can you talk quickly about the how this will be increase efficiency as far as holding up traffic accidents to scan them and all that good stuff?
Yes, let me give you an example. When we conduct a murder scene investigation, it takes a lot of time. Currently, we do it manually, so it takes a lot of time to collect the evidence. And number one priority, like I said, is collecting the evidence. So detectives have to do it manually, have to map out the area, and depends on the complexity of the scene. That may take 2, 3, 4 hours. And the same thing applies to accident reconstructions, especially when it's a fatal accident. So while they're collecting the evidence, they don't have time to interview the witnesses, the suspects, and complainants, which is the number 2 priority. So by the use of the scanner is going to reduce the amount of time we do in collecting evidence and let us pay attention to the actual interview of the witnesses, the complainants, and the suspects at the scene.
Thank you for that. Other question, are the software costs or access to the data, is there any costs associated with that? And is that baked into the price of this?
That's baked into the price of this.
Okay, very good. And the last question I have, because this device is no bigger than this, and it's $138,000. As far as security, is this something that's stored similar to the different smaller?
It's going to be stored with our technology officer we have other technology besides this,
right,
where we do cell phone dumps and everything's in a secure area in the CID division.
Very good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. My question about the training and 3-year maintenance was already answered. And I know this, I've seen this, and it's great. I've seen it in use, but I know the departments, 3 years after use, is there a plan for the 3 years after that?
This project, I'm sorry,
Yes.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
This project was started before I got here, but one thing that I'm going to do, any contract that we do, we always, plan out at least 2 years in advance. So started next year, we're going to start planning to see how we could extend the use of this equipment. Most of the time, this technology changes, and we're going to have to purchase maybe an upgraded product.
Okay.
So that's in the plans. After, the first year of use, we're going to start evaluating how we can improve this software and purchase a new one.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Do anyone else want to speak? Chief Lopez, once again, thank you. You're on the ground, you're running and ensuring that this equipment right here will save a lot of time and we can catch the corporate, whoever, accident or murder. And I think this is a great investment. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Public hearing will be held July the 25th, 2023, Council, you have 2 times to speak for 5 minutes. Madam Secretary.
PH 23039, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance authorizing the 2023-2024 annual action plan describing use of funds and authorizing application for an allocation of Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnerships, HOME, program funds. Second of 2 public hearings.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mrs. Smith, welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening. Madam Mayor, the presentation remains the same as the first public hearing, but if council would like me to review again, I'd be happy to do so.
Yes, ma'am. Council? No, ma'am. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
PH 23042, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance amending the FY 2023 annual budget of the City of Killeen to increase revenue and expense accounts and multiple funds.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mrs. Drake, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This budget amendment covers 2 items. This is for the pavement management program that Mr. Wilson briefed you on earlier for the FAA grant. That's 90% funding for the program and 10% match for the aviation CIP fund. And then this budget amendment also appropriates the certificates of obligation Series 2023 that were issued last Tuesday. The original adopted budget for 2023 included a planned $20 million issue. After a few city council workshops and a survey, there was a change in the plan, and the city council issued a $32 million bond and changed the projects a little bit. And so this budget amendment realigns that. So this will appropriate the additional $12.1 million and align the projects to city council's direction. So this appropriates the aviation item for the grant. This is the revenue and the expense. And then this is the additional $12 million for the bonds. This is the revenue. And then there were a few projects that were included in the 23 budget that were dropped off. One is the animal services quarantine facility that's no longer needed because the animal services facility was purchased with fund balance. And then the city hall HVAC upgrades were postponed. The city hall structural improvements and the north annex remodel were postponed. And then the evidence storage building, we had funded the $200,000 of the design with fund balance at the mid-year budget amendment. So this realigns with the bonds and funds the additional cost of the construction. It adds the fleet services facility project, the new park development project, the parks maintenance facility project was already included, and the $600,000 of design was funded with fund balance. And then there was additional funding added for the increased cost for the construction for the parking lot expansion at the police headquarters. And then there was increased cost for the Skylark new fixed base operator. And then there was paying agent and issuance cost for a total of $32 million. And the recommendation is to approve the amendment to the budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Drake. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Drake. A couple questions just for clarification purposes. The City Hall structural improvements and the Police Department North Annex remodel and the City Hall HVAC upgrades, I know those were postponed, and I think a lot of that hinges on whether or not we move forward with a GO bond election.
Yes, sir.
If that doesn't happen, would these funds still be available as a Plan B, or are they going to be allocated somewhere else?
We would have to come back and you would have to issue a bond, and we would have to do a new appropriation. Because these were not included in the $32 million bond.
Gotcha. I'm tracking. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mayor Pro Tem.
You know, I am thrilled. I am thrilled because people are going to get a new building.
Yes,
I am thrilled because Fleet Services will have somewhere to work and the stuff ain't falling out the ceilings. And that just thrills. But my question always is, we hear this, how long does it take? I mean, you know, that's the question. When a person come up to you, Ms. Cobb, how long is it going to take? When will we see some dirt moving, some things falling? How long does it take? I know that's not a good budget question, but.
No, it's a great question.
Mr. Kagan. I didn't mean to cut you off, Mrs. Drake.
I think on both of these projects, we're going to recommend more of a design build. So that does speed up the process. They're pretty straightforward facilities. So on Fleet side, first we have to get a location, and we're nailing down the location on the parks. And I don't know, I'd say 6 to 8 months. Hope nobody shoots me, but I think we can, on projects like that, we could perhaps see some dirt moving.
So we're going to have a ribbon cutting in 7 months?
No.
Okay.
A groundbreaking.
Groundbreaking,
Yes,
breaking
ma'am.
on it.
Yeah.
Okay, I was ready to buy some cupcakes. Let's do it.
Great question.
Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just stepped out, coming back in and heard the word parks. Just a question. In particular, which of the 2 parks that we're discussing?
Mr. Kagan.
We don't have that designated yet because we're still working on some property donations, but I'm expecting the property donations that we've talked about in the past would receive a pretty good chunk of this funding.
Sure, because my understanding is that these are for the parks in the western portion of Columbia.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Okay.
I wouldn't say the 100% of it, but probably the vast majority of it.
Okay. And I know the council recently discussed the 2 community parks being priority parks for West Killeen in particular, as opposed to the other ones that were mentioned. It was the 2 community parks we put motion direction to move forward with. I just want to ensure that those are the parks that we're working towards with this funding.
Yes, sir, and we had some other funding for the projects that you talked about, and we'll be bringing back a report to you on all the locations that you brought up to tell you the pluses and minuses and what we can and can't do with those pieces of property, but there was some money set aside for those already. Does that make sense?
I mean, it does, and
Okay.
I think I need to do a little bit more research. Thank you, I appreciate it.
You bet.
Would anyone else like to speak? Thank you, Mrs. Drake.
Yes, thank you.
Items for discussion at workshop. Council, you have 2 times to speak for 5 minutes. Madam Secretary.
DS 23069, Municipal Court Briefing.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good evening, Judge Krishner. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, council members. Good evening, City Manager. This is the July 18th municipal court briefing. This is for the month of June and also briefly for the month of May. So the first thing I'll talk about is the number of defendants that came to court June 2023. I'll also talk about the funds collected in May and June of 2023. Also, I'll discuss the data for the National Center for State Court Tool Metrics for May 2023 and June 2023. Now, for the number of defendants for June 2023, we'll talk about the number of defendants who came to the lobby area of the court, and we'll also talk about the number of defendants who came to the court for their dockets. Now, we had 1,441 defendants come to the court lobby. That's usually for the initial appearance or for other matters not assigned to the court dockets. Now, for the court dockets, things like arraignment, show cause for arraignment, other things like that, there were 341 defendants total for the month of June. Moving on now to the funds collected. Now, I'll compare May and June. I talked about May last month. I'm just having May on here as a comparison for the month of June. Now, the first thing we'll talk about are the funds collected. Now, the funds collected, the way we list these are as the total funds collected by the court for the fines, the fees, and the court costs. Now, this metric shows how much money was retained by the city and how much was remitted to the state. This shows the total amount of funds collected by the court. As you can see in the graph here, for May, we had $249,389 that were kept by the city, and we remitted $108,191 to the state. The total collected was $357,580. Now, as we move to June, you can see we had less money kept by the city, $241,381, but more money remitted to the state, $117,362, and we had a larger total amount of money collected, $358,743. Moving on now to the data for the National Center for State with the court tool metrics. This is, again, a comparison between May and June of 2023. Now, the first thing we'll talk about is the clearance rate. This is the number of outgoing cases as a percentage of the number of incoming cases. Now, the clearance rate measures whether the court is keeping up with its incoming caseload. Now, we'll start with the graph for May. The actual number for the clearance was 99,059%. That's a little lower than national time standards of 100% or higher. You can see in June we decreased to 58,080%. That's well below the clearance rate standard. Now, that's because the number of case filings increased and the number of cases disposed decreased compared to the previous month. The reason being is because in June, the police department conducted at least 3-step incidents for the month. So they had more cases filed than normal. So that threw off our percentage of cases coming in versus cases being disposed for the month. That's why the number is a lot lower. But the good news is, obviously, the police were out there helping out with the STEP program. That's the enforcement program for traffic cases to eliminate traffic violations. And that's grant funded by the state. Next, we'll move on to time to disposition. This is the percentage of cases disposed or otherwise resolved within established timeframes. This measure used along with the clearance rate and the age of pending caseload is an essential management tool that assesses the length of time it takes a court to process cases. Now, this one, you can see in May, within 60 days, we disposed of 27.5%. Within 90 days, 34.9%, and within 180 days, 47.65%. And you can see the national time standards were well below the national time standards. Same thing with June, 29.34% within 60 days, 37.72% within 90 days, and 66.47% within 180 days. Now, the reason why the court's so far below these time standards is between the years of 2018 and 2022, we were not processing warrants, and the reason we're processing warrants are varied. But the problem with that is the cases they stay in an active status. So because they're in active status, they throws off our numbers. So even though these cases are old and not being taken care of, they still go against our numbers. But now we're processing warrants now, and we're working on these numbers to improve these numbers. So they'll get there eventually, but it'll take a while. I would think probably next year before these numbers increase to the national standard levels. Next, we move on to the age of pending caseload. Now, the age of the active cases that are pending before the court, measured as the number of days from filing until the time of measurement. Now, the cases that are filed but are not yet disposed are what make up the court's pending caseload. As you can see in May, we started with 3.06% of pending cases between 1 and 60 days. And then we moved to 1.68% for cases between 61 and 90 days, and 3.89% for cases between 91 and 180 days. We bump up to 91.37% for cases that are older than 180 days. Once again, these are because those cases that were backlogged in the active, that weren't issued warrants, so they're active cases, they're old cases. That's why the bulk of our cases are older than 180 days. As you can see in June, the numbers decreased slightly for the 180-day cases, and the numbers for the more recent cases have gone up, the percentage has gone up slightly. Those numbers will continue to go up every month until we reach the standards listed out on the national time standards, but once again, it's going to take a while for those numbers to reach those standards. Now, we also have the time date certainty. This is the number of times cases disposed by trial or scheduled for trial. This metric provides a tool for management to evaluate the effectiveness of calendaring and continuous practices. Now, these numbers are very easy because we have no trials in May or June, so there are no numbers here. There have been no trials, so there are no numbers to report. So in summary, I covered the number of defendants that the courts have seen in June, the funds collected for June, and as well as May, and also the numbers for the National Center for State Courts Court Tool Metrics. Are there any questions?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Sir, where does the money go? I mean, I'm noticing like on the money portion, is there a collection that goes back into the court system, or does it come to the city of Killeen?
Well, the fines go to the city. The court does not get any money we don't keep any money. The fines go to the city, the court costs go to the state, and the fees go to entities that they go to, like DPS or collections agencies, things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Judge Krishner.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Could you explain to me the process for a docket cleanup?
Yes, ma'am. The process for docket cleanup is actually adding more of these old cases to special dockets. Like before I became the judge, we had no dockets on Friday. We've actually added 2 dockets on Friday, a morning docket and an afternoon docket to cover these old cases. It's called the failure to appear docket. These are for defendants who are scheduled for court but never showed up to court. Those cases are stayed active, and those cases should have gone to warrant status, but they never did. So now we can't just issue the warrants. We have to actually set them on these failure to appear dockets before the warrants can be issued. So like I said, it's a process. So we set these people out. We have to give them notice too, so we have to send them notice, and before they can actually be set for the dockets. We give them a notice. If they show up to court, we can take care of their cases right then and there. If they do not show up to court, then we can issue the warrants.
So you have a challenge ahead of you.
Oh, absolutely. Ever since I started, this challenge has been there. It's going to be there for a while.
Yes, sir. Well, there's no questions for you, but thank you and your team for everything that you do to take care of the fines and tickets and bring in revenue into the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Madam Secretary.
DS 23075, discuss proposed FY24 operating and CIP budget.
Mr. Cagle.
Yes, ma'am, Mayor and Council. We don't have a presentation on this. What we're going to do is put this item on all your agendas leading up to budget approval in case there's anything that you've come up with during the previous week that you would like to bring up on the operating or capital budget. Any requests for information or anything you want included or excluded from the budget that the council could address. So it's just open to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle and staff, for taking the initiative to put this on every agenda until it's approved. Madam Secretary.
DS 23070, discuss the October 10th, 2023 regular city council meeting.
Mr. Cagle.
So this is discussing October 10th, where I believe we won't be able to have a quorum, and the idea is to cancel the October 10th city council meeting. So, which means on October 3rd, we would go ahead and have a workshop, skip October 10th council meeting, and then on October 17th, we would have a council meeting and to address the October 3rd items, and then have a workshop for the October 24th council meeting, if that meets your approval. There's probably a lot of ways this could be done. That's sort of traditionally the way we've done it. But open to any ideas that you might have.
Mr. Cagle, there's no questions, so I can only, do anyone have a question?
I have a question, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you. Mr. Cagle, you mentioned a meeting on October 3rd, is that right?
Yes, sir. And we're doing our best to keep that short, because there's a lot going on there as well. That's National Night Out, and then the Texas Municipal League Conference in Dallas starts on Wednesday.
Gotcha, thank you.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Cagle? Councilmember Solomon.
Okay, so on October the 10th, in terms of, could we not have a early, you said the night out is October 3rd?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what would you suggest in terms of having an early city meeting, like a 4 o'clock?
Yep, staff certainly open to that. Yep.
So we could meet, if those, want to go out for that night out and meet the citizens?
Yes, sir. We're going to do our best to keep it short, but that would ensure you've got plenty of time if we started early.
Madam Mayor, I would like to see,
Councilmember Solomon, if you put it in the motion of direction, I will give a second and we can vote on it.
Okay, so that's October the 3rd, is that correct, City Manager?
Yes, sir.
Tonight out. Well, I'll make a motion that we would have the city council meeting at 4
So the council meeting or workshop?
and workshop. Is it a workshop?
I'm trying to
Yeah,
confirm.
it's a workshop.
It's a workshop on October the 3rd.
So Councilmember Solomon, motion of direction is for the council meeting on October 3rd to be at 4:00 PM. Councilmember Boyd.
Second.
Councilmember Boyd, second the motion of direction. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. The motion carries 7-0. Madam Secretary.
DS 23071, discuss and consider a health program and possible reallocation of ARPA funding.
Thank you. Welcome back, Mrs. Tangleman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm going to give an ARPA project status, that way you guys can discuss and to reallocate the money that is available. So for the hotel occupancy tax fund, you see the amount allocated was $2.1 million and $759,000 has been expended. For the general fund, public safety, Boys and Girls Club, business assistance, and all other programs on the general fund, $8.5 million was allocated and $6 million is already being spent. And for the governmental CIP fund, we have all these projects. There were $17 million allocated and $2.9 million has been spent. For the other programs that were appropriated in fiscal year 2023, $789,000 were allocated and $112,000 has already spent. And this give you a remaining balance of $151,273 that hasn't been allocated for ARPA funding. I'm going to go into the grocery store initiative a little bit, and here is a breakdown of the grocery store initiative allocation. ARPA funds were $20,328 were allocated, and from the KPFC, $70,000 were allocated. That's a total of $90,000. Only $42,000 was allocated to the Oasis Fresh Market, and we have $48,328 still waiting to be allocated out of this $90,000. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mrs. Tangleman. Council, Mr. Russell requested that the $48,000 that are there, that Oasis be used for site visits, phase 1 of this venture to bring a grocery store to the city of Killeen. I just want to bring that back to your attention. If there is opportunity for a motion of direction, I think that would be well worth it. Councilmember Sagara.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a couple of months ago, we had a discussion about the grocery store, the one we have in downtown. And I know that we had a meeting with them, with the KADC, the chamber president, Mrs. Gonzalez, who went down there. And I know we as a council, we wanted to use part of that $90,000 because we have a grocery store downtown that's been there through all of this. And, you know, they've never asked for anything. I know that when we went down there and had that meeting, the refrigerator had broken down. And we wanted to see if, you know, we can allocate. And I think Ms. Gonzalez tried to do that. And then the council made a motion that we were going to try to see if there was anybody else out there as grocery, if I remember right. And nobody came forward. And if not, then we can allocate some of that money towards them, because this is a grocery store that's been there throughout all this, that's been in our community, has been out there doing what they're supposed to and never asked for anything. And so my thing is, I think that we as council should provide them with something, you know, how much of that refrigerator that broke down cost them, and provide some funding for them, taking care of somebody that's been in our local community for a long time, not take away anything from somebody that's coming, but I think that it's just right to just provide something for somebody that's been here in our community. And with that, I'll open it up to council.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. My comment or question is probably best suited for our city attorney or city manager. If this was to flesh out and we said, hey, we want to allocate some of this money for this existing grocery store, some improvements or whatever they may need, what does that look like, and how would those funds legally get to them? I'm sure there had to be some sort of agreement or contract, or how would that work? We can't just say, here's some money.
Through a grant agreement like we've done with the other ARPA funds.
Okay, so they would need to come and basically fill something out or put in a formal request, or do we just go to them if this gets voted this way, or a motion direction is made? Like,
We've had a process for the other ARPA funds, an application process, and I'm trying to remember the last motion of direction regarding, and I'm probably not remembering this right, but I thought we were going to put it out, advertise something.
It was for other nonprofits, wasn't it? And we didn't receive any more applications.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just remembering incorrectly then. But that could be done for this process if that's what you wanted.
okay, yeah, I guess, because typically like the ones you're referring to, they came to us with an ask, and that's not so much the case here. I mean, there's been conversations with them, but the city hasn't received a formal ask. So I don't know how that conversation goes, so maybe y'all can figure it out.
I think we can have Kate go give them a visit.
Okay.
And see what the real pressing needs are, and then get the process going.
Perfect.
Thank you. So that is to fix a freezer, and Mr. Russell bringing in another, trying to bring a grocery store here. And I know Councilmember Board has one, but I'm going to go to Councilmember Solomon.
I don't think I was on council then, but I remember you all discussing, and you talked about this a couple of months ago, and I think that y'all allowed or made a request, allow him to, that store you were talking about, Councilmember Tagara, that he would apply for the funds. I think this recorded. Y'all agreed that we didn't allocate anything.
Yes, sir. Mr. Cagle will be able to answer that.
Well, what we did was we set aside, there was two conversations going on there. One was about nonprofits, and then the other one, we set aside the $90,000 of the combination of ARPA money and some of the nonprofit money to go to a grocery store to be determined how it would be.
But it wasn't that grocery store.
It was for, you're correct, it was for any grocery store, and the only actual allocation that's been made was the $2,900 for the study for the Oasis. And so out of that, the 90,000, there's still, I just did the math, 87,428 available to be allocated to some grocery store initiative, new or old. It wasn't, or new or existing. The split was not necessarily, well, no, I'm wrong, it was. If you go back to the presentation, there was 42,000 set aside for the Oasis Fresh Market, of which 2,900 has been spent. So the remaining available for allocation, whether it's Oasis or some other grocery store in North Killeen, is 48,328.
So we have to go through everyone before we can come back to anyone. Councilwoman Gonzalez. Councilman Solomon, are you finished, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
No, thank you. Councilmember Gonzalez.
And just a point of clarity, there were two recipients of ARPA funds that had not responded within our window. We set a 2-week deadline. I think the dollar amount was 120,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it was 120,000. And they did not respond, and we had talked about opening that up to the other people in the area for allocation of funds. So they were two separate, to Mr. Cagle's point, two separate conversations, the 120 if they did not apply, and then the remaining balance of the 48,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyd, because I had forgotten about this one. So would you please present it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to ask the council to take a particular proposal, not proposal, but request into consideration. Some months back, Ms. Delcina West with Admin Health Central Texas made the presentation to the council about the community health needs assessment, and she discussed the pilot program that they were working on. In particular, it's called the Healthy Eating and Nutrition Pilot Program. That program would help 20 families with the initiative, and the amount would be about $5,000. So I'm asking for the council to take that in consideration as opposed to anything that's $10,000, $20,000, perhaps taking $5,000 to help support this pilot program for families here in the city of Killeen.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyd. I want to piggyback on that. So the purpose of this, I don't know if everyone remembered when she presented to us, it was really focused on the health welfare of low-income family, helping them with their cooking and purchasing food. It was really geared toward our youth that are obese, and it's great because it's a program that will teach them about how to cook, what type of food they should be be eating, how to exercise, because as we all know, obesity is a beast within our youth population. If we want them to have longevity in their health, I think this is an excellent program to invest in. And I do understand that we're limited to funding because we have 3 items that are out there, but I do believe there's an opportunity for everyone, if we're not going to give to just one, that everyone can receive some of the remaining ARPA funding. Councilmember Sagara, this is your second time.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, because Mr. Solomon had mentioned that, I think it was that they hadn't applied or they hadn't asked or something like that. And that was the case, because we went out there and we told them that we would let them know as soon as that was available, and it hasn't come up yet. We've been having that discussion. And so, again, I don't know if, I just wanted to make sure that we save something for them, because they've been out here throughout this whole process. And not only are they a business, but they actually been filling a need that's in our downtown, which is a grocery store. And you can buy all the commonalities, milk and all that there. So I just want to make sure we save some money for them. And Mr. City Manager, do I need to do anything to get Kate out there to make sure that we reserve some money for this, just in case? Because I know that when we talked about the refrigerator, I don't remember how much it was, but it was around 40,000 or something like that. So if I can make a motion to kind of reserve 40,000 for them until we get that application, or let them know how it is that they need to apply, because all they're waiting for is that guidance.
Are you making a motion of direction?
Yeah, that we reserve at least 40, we reserve 40,000 for the nutritional food store in our downtown.
Okay, knowing that Mr. Cagle is Ms. Kate going down there
Yes,
to
ma'am.
assess it.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to reserve, okay, let me get a second on that. Is there a second to the motion? Councilmember Alvarez, are you second or you just got a comment? You have to get a second first. So stand by. Councilmember Boyd, is that a second? Okay, Councilmember Gonzalez, is that a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion of direction by Councilmember Sagara, and it was second by Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Alvarez, this is your second time.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to clarify, I think Councilmember Sagara left some stuff out on his motion that he meant to put in there. The motion of direction was to set aside 40,000 for any needs that the existing grocery store may need. I think we could combine that with what Mr. Boyd said, allocate 5,000 of the 48 to what Ms. West presented and her healthy eating initiative. I was going to say, if you remove the 5,000 from the 48,328, you leave 43,328 to be allocated or used for a grocery store initiative like it is, and for staff to reach out to the existing grocery store to really see what his needs are and come back with something.
Councilmember Boyd, this is your second time.
I was going to second his amendment to the motion.
He didn't say, is that amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So that's amendment. We have a second. Do you have anything else before I go to the next person? Councilmember Boyd.
That was it, just a second.
Thank you. Councilmember Gonzalez, this is your second time. You don't want to speak?
Yes, ma'am. I concur with everything and just want to thank everybody's dedication to resolving our food crisis in one way or another. There's so many people providing great services to our community. And so I'm just thankful that everyone is able to participate and receive some sort of benefit to help our community further. So thank you, guys.
Mr. Cagle, what is the amount that we have left?
One moment.
While he's coming up with the remaining amount, we have amendment by Mr. Alvarez and a second by Councilmember Voigt. All in favor of the motion of direction by Councilmember Alvarez, second by Councilmember Voigt. Click yes, if not, no. Somebody had.
Mr. Zagara. There you go.
7-0. All in favor of the motion of direction, amendment plus the original motion of direction, vote yes. All opposed, no.
Yes, ma'am. So the remainder,
No.
oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Stand by. 7-0. Mr. Cagle,
The remainder would be 3,328.
can someone make a motion to get that to the Oasis grocery store? Because really not anything else anyone
Mayor.
can do with that. Yes, sir.
My amendment included that.
Oh,
Did-
I missed it.
I missed it, so
Yeah.
how much was it?
I said 40, what's when there, 48,328 minus 5,000 leaves 43,328 to remain for the grocery store initiative.
So all of it is gone?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize for that. We didn't get that. Did you get that motion, the amendment to the motion of direction, Madam Secretary, with the amendment what Councilmember Alvarez stated?
Roughly, yes.
Could you repeat it, please, for the record?
Yes, it was, there's currently $48,328 available to be allocated. The amendment was to allocate $5,000 to the program presented by Mrs. West, leaving $43,328 to remain for grocery store initiatives, and that staff would reach out to the existing grocery store downtown to figure out their needs and work with them to see what it is that they're going to ask for.
Thank you,
No, it
Councilmember
wasn't. You're right.
Alvarez. I'm just going to wait till Madam Secretary get out of that.
I'm good, Mayor, thank you.
You're so welcome. Madam Secretary. I'm sorry, stand by. Any more comments? Councilmember Solomon and Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Cobb, you have one time left if you would like to say something. Mayor Pro Tem.
I would like to say something. I think sometimes when we're giving out money or we're assigning money or persons come in here and they make their requests known, that we've got to be careful. We've got to be careful on the assumption that someone may think that they're going to have money to come back and to help in their project. That they have spoken enough that we understand to lay it aside. That when they come back, that it's there. We really have to be careful in our wordings in the way that we're giving false assumptions sometimes. Because I have a feeling that tonight, maybe I even did it, that when we were talking about the Oasis grocery store, that they're thinking, hey, I came in here, I was here first. The persons that may need something in the other places have not been here. I told them that I may need some money. Oasis, what was it, Onassis?
Oasis.
Oasis, okay. Oasis is gonna have some money, but they may not have all of the money. And that's all I'm gonna state. I don't mind calling the name out, but we really have to be careful. And also, I really want to make a notation that I really think that people should come in and ask for it. You know, they need to come in and tell us, hey, I need $5,000. My bananas fell out the tray, and the tray don't work no more, or whatever's going on. We've got to hear from it, and the council needs to hear from it. I understand that you all are going to go out and you're going to check these things, and you're going to come back and you're going to say what is needed. But I just want to say, be careful. We have to be careful on how we do that. Because if I came back to ask you for some money that I thought I had, you wouldn't have a good night.
Oasis did not receive anything. No, it went to Sagara Person and Advent Health.
And I'm just afraid that they may have left with a false assumption, thinking I'm gonna have a little something to help out in Onassis. And the other person that's coming to help with this, I don't know what they're gonna think, but I just want us to be careful on how we do those when we start allocating money and what we're saying to people who come in to ask for money. I mean, I know, hey, that's the way it goes. Yeah.
Thank you. Council, we're going to keep
Exactly.
order. We're going to respect the person that has the floor. We're going to learn to agree to disagree. Any other discussions, Mayor Pro Tem, it can be done outside, but we will conduct order. Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First question, it was mentioned, am I reading it right? We did allocate 42,000, we just didn't give them additional funds tonight.
That's right.
Okay, so Oasis got 42,000. I guess my next question is for Mr. Cagle. Mr. Cagle, or Ms. Tangling. We're, based off your information, are we on track to meet the requirements to spend? Because I know that everyone that we've given ARPA money to, they have a certain amount of time to show that they're going to expend all the money, and that we have a plan. Because I know when I was previously on council and asked if we could track and see where the status is, that was my concern, to make sure that we meet the federal government's requirements for issuing it, and then perhaps have a backup plan to allocate it someplace else in case the grantees don't spend the money as agreed.
Definitely. You see here, the ARPA funds is only $20,000. Those $20,000 we have to spend by December 2024. The KPFC money, we have
Yeah.
unlimited time to spend it.
So, I mean,
So
the
we made sure that the ARPA funding is spent first.
I guess I'm speaking more on the previous funds that we gave last fall and last summer.
So any ARPA funding, there you go, that it was allocated has to be spent by December 2024.
Right. And so, educate me real quick on if the nonprofit doesn't spend the money, do we have to give that money back, or can we reallocate it someplace else?
If they don't spend the money, we will have to have enough time to reallocate the money to a
That's-
project that we already have.
That's what I was wondering.
Yes,
So
sir.
do we give them a date, I don't remember, prior to December 24th, like September 30th, to have that, or a plan to spend?
I believe that they was given to the
Okay.
grantees. Yes, sir.
And then, you answered my other question. Thank you.
Councilmember Saab. This is your second time.
Okay, okay. So what I understand is that Oasis was already allocated 42,
Yes, sir.
and they only spent 2,900 so far.
They only had spent 2,900. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we did accommodate them with that amount.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I know you are happy that all of the money is gone. Councilmember Boyd, you spoke twice already, so I know you're happy. But I just want to thank you and your team for all your patience and your dedication to bringing this forward to the council.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary.
DS 23-072, discuss potential bond issue and bond election.
Before we get started, council, I'm just saying, when a person has the floor, please cut down on the side talk so the video can record it and that we can understand what they're saying. Mr. Cagle.
Yes, ma'am, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to bring this item up because middle or end of August is going to be our deadline for calling a bond election for this November. And I just have some concerns that we may not be ready, and bring a few things to your attention. If we have the bond election in November and we fail, you can't come back for 3 years with that same item. But even more worrisome, there was legislation that was passed that made that 5 years, but the governor vetoed it in his message to the House and Senate to get the tax reduction bill done. I think there's a possibility in special sessions that make some of those bills that he vetoed may come back. So that's number one. Number two, I don't believe that a political action committee has been set up to start collecting, raising money to support this effort, because, you know, the city cannot go out and spend money to promote a bond election. All we can do, we can put pamphlets out that say, here are the facts, here are the projects, here's the cost, here's the tax rate implication, but that's all we can do. We can't go out and, you can't spend money. You as individuals can, but city can't spend money to go promote a bond election. That's the second one, and we're just ready to schedule the first meeting of the bond committee. And then finally, the November election, and I guess it depends on how you want to look at it, but the November election is going to be an extremely low turnout. There's going to be a few constitutional amendments on there. There's no office holder on the ballot. So it will be a low turnout, as opposed to, I would think, the May election is a mayoral and at-large. It should be larger. And then November of '24 should be extremely large turnout because that's a presidential election. So just take those things into account, is that you never want to lose a bond election, but there's more consequences now because that project is going to be, you can't come back for 3, perhaps 5 years, and I'm just not for sure we're really ready, and that the community, we haven't done enough work to get the community educated on this, and I think that's where a political action committee would come into play. They could do some things, raise some money, get some community support that you can't really do as a city. And obviously, you don't have to make a decision tonight or next week. I just wanted to give you some things to think about. And that's the next item is to talk about scheduling what you would like to do and how you would like to do it. We don't have to come up with specific dates, but I think if you want some good input into this process, you will have want to looked at some other city halls. Our architect is pretty far along in the process now. What they've been doing is interviewing every single department that is proposed to go into City Hall, talking about their space needs currently and growth, because this is, I think you look at this as a lifetime project. Should be a 100-plus year building that we're going to go in, and you really want to get it right the first time. So there is a whole lot, and when you think about it, we expect it's probably going to be a multi-story building. So what goes on the first floor? Is it going to be all the customer service aspects? You would think it would be, but then does a council chambers go on the second floor? At some point, if everything's on the first floor, you got a one-story building, and it doesn't work. So there are a lot of considerations, especially when we're municipal court and police expansion is going to be there. There are a lot of different options there. So what I think sounded like kind of a simple thing, an architect was going to draw some schematics. That's sort of an end result that a tremendous amount of work goes into on the front end to get there. And so I would just like you to think about that and have plenty of time to think about it before we have to make a decision in August about calling an election for this November. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or help with a discussion if you want to have one.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle, for taking the initiative to do the research and having that hard conversation. And I was shocked when I saw your comments, but yes. With that being said, because one thing I want to say is what's the point of doing a bond if we move too fast and there's no progress? And we have invested some time in it, but it's well worth the wait. Councilmember Sagara.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree with you, Mrs. Mayor, because August is just a month away. It's not, it's just, there's not a lot of time. We're in the middle of budget. And you said we can tell you this later, but I'm of the opinion we should give you guidance now, because I'd hate for the staff to kind of work on this only for us to delay it later on, and you wasted all that time. This way you can kind of take a breather here and know that, if we do this, we have better time to prepare for it for possibly our May election or longer. So I'm in favor of, right now, just removing that from the ballot, for putting it on the calling election there in November, so that it gives you some breather there, because I don't think we're ready. I think that this is something that requires a lot of publicity, and I can pretty much bet with a high percentage of certainty that if we were to put this out in November, it would not pass right now, because there's nothing been said about it. So, I'm in favor of taking it out. Do I have to make a motion of direction or anything to do that?
Make a motion of direction.
I make a motion of direction that we delay this bond election and from our November ballot and just table it or whatever it is that is required.
I'll second.
We have a motion of direction. Councilmember Boyd.
I want to make an amendment to the motion.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, who seconded it? Mr. Solomon.
Sorry, I didn't see you on this. So we have a motion of direction by Councilmember Sagara, and we have a second by Councilmember Solomon. And Councilman Boyd, you want to make an amendment to that?
Sure, I'm going to make an amendment before that, just make this comment. I do actually agree that the timing is moving very quickly for us. This may not be the most appropriate time to move forward with the bond election. I do absolutely believe it is necessary that we do so next year, whether it's the summer or the fall. Give us some time to really speak to the citizens and work to sell this and further qualify it. It is a need for the city of Killeen. So my amendment would be to postpone it until, actually, I'd like to have discussion on this until the fall of 2024.
So your amendment is to have discussion on, because we already got postponed, delayed, the same thing. So your amendment is to have discussion on what date, Councilmember Boyd?
Not have discussion, but
fall.
to
Is it fall? Did you say fall?
the fall of 2024,
Okay,
to call the election for the fall of 2024.
fall of 2024.
Permitting us a year.
I like that. So we have the amendment to the motion. Can I get a second? I'm sorry, Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Second that.
All right, the floor is still you. Were you finished, Councilmember Boyd?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Gonzalez, the floor is yours if you would like to continue to discuss the item.
Mr. Cagle, with this new information that you've got currently, is there a process in place so that we are working on proper implementation? Because I would hate to get to the fall and we are back having the same conversation that we're not ready for the May, November again. So during this time, the action committee that we've already kind of put into place, are we going to have them continue to meet or begin meeting and start the process? What does that look like for us? If you can kind of map that out for me, please.
Yes, ma'am. I think we would have the initial meeting with them, give them all the information, get them up to speed on what the council has brought forward, start getting their input, meet on a regular basis. But also, I think there's some things that staff can't do in the political arena as far as setting up a PAC. The sooner that someone can take charge of that and get moving and get community leaders involved all across the city, the sooner the better on that as well.
And when you say someone, is that someone in the committee that we kind of pre-formed already? That
It doesn't
they're
have to be.
going to be spearheading this, though? They're spearheading this formation process, or no?
It could be anybody. It does not have to be someone on the committee, or it could be.
Or could be. And then who's going to continue to watch the governor's vetoes?
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Cagle, for that.
Yes,
Because I did
ma'am.
not catch that one.
We will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cagle. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with pushing it out. And if I'm not, please clarify, voting for this, is that saying we're going to declare or making that the earliest that we declare an election to November 2024. Just want to get clarity.
Are you asking, this wouldn't be calling an election for
Right, okay.
2024. You have to do that by ordinance. and
We're
so
just
that would
setting it
be-
up where we're not going to declare it until that time.
Right, we're
Okay.
setting it up to prepare to call an election for the fall 2024
Got
election.
it. So for the architect, that gives them at least another year.
Oh, it gives them ample time, and it also gives you, for them to set up perhaps some day trips to different city halls. They don't all have to be brand new. I mean, there can be some that are older you might want to take a look at. But we'll give you a lot of options on that of places to go.
And then the product that the architect is going to come back with, would it be like a design charrette where you come back and show the cartoon of well, everything that, or is it just going to be a slide of a picture?
Oh, no, it's, that's sort of an end product that everybody likes to see and a site plan, but there will be a tremendous amount of detail behind that.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor, and I remorsefully, I do agree with the rest of the council that the time has crept up pretty quick, and there are some boxes that we need to check before we can take this to the voters. So I'm in agreement to delay this, but I like that we're putting a date on it instead of tabling it indefinitely, because I think that's just kicking a can down the road. What I would like to see, though, is some more direction. I know, Mr. Cagle, you talked briefly about a political action committee and the benefits of having one of those to help market and get the word out. I believe KISD did something similar, and their PAC, had signs everywhere with "Vote yes for the kids," because nobody's going to say no to the kids. And they got $750 million. So when you meet with this, with the committee that we've appointed for this GO bond initiative, if you can kind of communicate that to them, since they're not elected officials, maybe they know someone that could help spearhead the formation or the PAC initiative. I could think of a couple of people that I'm sure would love to do it. So I don't think we're lacking in desire. So I think it's just one of those things that now that we know about it, we'll check that box as well and keep moving forward. So thank you.
Councilmember Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Cagle, so is it possible to have some type of timeline of all of this? I mean.
Yes, sir.
Suggested timeline?
I can put one together for you, and let me consult with our architect a little bit, but I can get one out to you fairly quickly.
So we could stay on track with it?
Yes, sir.
Know where we're going at? Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, you're the only one that have not spoken. Would you like to, before I move on? Thank you. So, Mr. Kagels, is also, when we're talking about a PAC committee, because the bond committee that we selected to have that expertise as a PAC committee, is there any way possible, are there any consultant companies that work in the realm of this area as a PAC would?
Yes, ma'am, and the city couldn't pay for that, so the PAC would have to raise some money and hire someone to work for them, but that's, I think, an option that's proven very successful.
And with a PAC, it has to be someone that can motivate the community to move forward in voting in favor of the bond that we want to propose on the agenda in the fall of '24 as we start to work on it, on the ballot for that. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a lot of work. All right, with that being said, no one else would like to speak. The motion of direction was to delay DS-23-072, and that is the bond issue and bond election with the amendment from Councilmember Boyd to bring it back in fall of 2024. All in favor of the amendment to bring it back for discussion in fall 2024, say yes. All opposed, no. Could you please raise your hand? Okay, we got it. It's 6-0 with Councilmember Sagara not voting. All in favor of the amendment with the motion, say yes. The amendment to the motion, say yes. All opposed, no. The motional direction, I should say, carries 6-0 with Councilmember Sagara not voting. Thank you, Council. I think the council, you made a wise choice to postpone this because we only want success when we put this item on the ballot, the bond election on the ballot. With that being said, Madam Secretary.
DS 23-073, discuss city council tours of other city hall facilities.
Mr. Cagle.
Yes. Well, Mayor and Council, now we have a little bit of time. I'll put this on a timeline and work with our architect to get a good list of city halls. And if there's anything that you know of, any place that you want to go, let me know, and then we'll put this back on an agenda and get some specific dates for you.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle. So you're going to bring us back the information that is needed for our tour on the City Hall, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. No discussion on that. Oh, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you for that, Mr. Cagle. We look forward to that information. And then I'm assuming we'll reach out to our neighbor, Georgetown next door, I hope is on the list, because they've got quite a bit of growth and information, and the population shift was similar
Yes.
to our exponential growth we're having here. So I think they'd be a good candidate as well, just right in our backyard.
Okay, got it.
So, Council, if you have anyone, city that you would like to visit, please be so kind, as Mr. Cagle stated, to just let him know or email him or call. With that being said, Madam Secretary.
DS 23-074, receive update on pending or contemplated litigation.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Law, VTCA Government Code 551.001, the mayor now calls a closed meeting of the City Council on the 18th day of July 2023. Mr. Cagle, what time is it?
It is 7:52.
Thank you, sir. It's 7:52. Under the following authority, Section 55.071, consultation with attorney. The City Council will receive an update from legal counsel regarding pending or contemplated litigation agenda item DS-23-074. The mayor calls a closed meeting. Kevin, can I get a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move.
Mayor Pro Tem, I see you click.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.